Hi, this is Nathan. Welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. Hello and welcome to the Wad Fam Chalk Pod. I'm Dylan Weaver.
And I'm Andrew Sabo.
And we're here this week to talk about episode 444B, The Bad Guy.
The Bad Guy.
Do you remember what the Spanish for the bad guy is, Andrew?
Well, guy is, boy is
I believe it's El Malvador. I'm just gonna save you.
Oh, thank you. Is that really what that means?
I didn't fact check them, but I would assume so.
I don't. Okay. I'm looking it up. I'm fact checking them now.
I assume mal is in like malice. And like adore feels like person who is, as in like
no, it's El Chico Malo.
No. But what does El Malvador? You got to translate the other way.
Okay.
Because doing a literal word for word
I'm not getting anything.
Would you like to hear my hunch, Andrew?
Sure, go for it.
My hunch is that it's not a direct translation. It's a nickname. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, if you heard it and understood Spanish, you would probably go, oh, yeah. I understand that roughly means the bad guy. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was like actual like Spanish words.
I thought you were suggesting that El Malvador is Spanish for the bad guy.
It is, but I'm saying that's what it means, not what it says.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
But I mean, that's my hunch. I don't know. I don't
terrible
speak Spanish.
I was terrible at learning languages in high school.
That surprises me not in the slightest.
Yeah. Attention to detail, continued focus, brain flexibility. Also, being homeschooled and not using it. I only got to practice once a week.
Right. Yeah.
So, of course, I did the bare minimum and got my 2 credits and got out.
This does not surprise me even slightly.
Yeah.
That you weren't particularly good here.
How many years... You took German, right?
I took 5 years of German.
Jeez Louise. You took it all the way up.
I really did.
Overachiever.
I don't... it didn't give me the ability to speak German. So...
What? How did you take it for 5 years and not feel like at any point fairly... I won't say fluent, but capable?
Because I never used it outside of a classroom.
Okay, fair. And you had that classroom how many times a week?
5?
Well, it was better than me.
Correct. Low bar.
I feel less bad.
But yeah, I mean, right. It's fine. Like languages, I don't know.
No,
catch me learning Spanish at some point.
No, I feel like I need to. I work with a lot of Spanish speakers, and it feels like a very useful tool.
I mean, sure. Andrew Vamp.
My brain does not like learning new languages because I have to understand things in context of other things, like for me to really comprehend it. And so it's really hard for me to adapt to like Spanish grammar and sentence structuring and things like that. Like, it's just, my brain hates it. It's like the worst parts of math and the worst parts of English put together.
So he's called the bad guy.
Okay.
That's the point. We don't need to know how they got there.
Nope.
It's fine.
And he doesn't even want to go by El Malvador.
Right. He's no longer... I love the bit of his name being translating to the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, so fun. Pulling back the curtain, folks. Spoilers for what's to come. I really like this one.
No, it is interesting.
Oh, wow. No, Andrew apparently does not. He just gave it a
interesting.
It is interesting, which is his way of politely saying, no,
You're
Dylan,
wrong.
I don't agree. This one didn't work for me. So the situation is there's this guy, Nick New from New York, who's called El Malvador, which is the bad guy, and he's coming, which, speaking of which Connie is the one who translates it. Mm-hmm. So I think it's interesting that Connie knows Spanish. I would just like to point that out. Like, I feel like that's not something we knew, but
coming in strong.
She's been in high school for 10 years. She might as well know Spanish.
Well, I don't know, man. At least 5 of those didn't work.
And then he goes on to explain that this guy is really bad, used to get into all sorts of trouble with him. Nick's like, you know, to drive this point home, shows off his scar, which Connie then asks if El Malvador gave it to him, and he said, well, no. But he has one like it. And she's like, that he got it a fight, and he's like, no. He also got it skateboarding, but he has been in fights that could have led to scars like this one, which is just it's a funny bit. It also like leans into this weird, like, Odyssey's weird relationship to violence.
Yeah,
where it's like they can't. But actually
they
say it,
have to.
But like they're walking this fun line in this episode. Sorry, I didn't mention off the top, but written by Marshall Younger, directed by Phil Lawler. But like, I really tend to like Marshall Younger.
No, me too.
As a writer, and this one I think hits those notes particularly well. Where I'm just like, man, like he knows how to like operate within the confines of Odyssey in ways that are fun, and he really nails Nick's voice in this episode of just like I love Nick. He's just like Nick. He's like the, I don't know, he's like the kid version of Bernard in that, like, he's just kind of a joke machine, but like it's not fully intentional, but it kind of just he's a fun character.
He's well written, and they convey, like, there's a part of him that's just him being him that is funny, and then there are like personally like written jokes and stuff like that. And there's also the compound of he's got an accent, and accents are fun. So
yeah. The fun piece of this is then when Nick's trying to coach them on how to talk to him, and he's like, well, you know, you can't say like nice things because he doesn't like those. Yeah, you can't say like you can't ignore him because he doesn't like that. Like all of this stuff to just be like, look, just say hey and nod.
Leave him alone. Don't even engage. And it's really funny because then Vince walks in. And you get a very interesting salutation from Wit. Like, just the way that his voice sounds is... It's funny. I mean, it's really awkward and clunky. It's just like, hey. Which is such a strange Wit moment being in, obviously, Wit's End. But yeah, and then Connie's also freaking out. They don't know how to do it. Like, they don't believe Nick is justified to be as scared as he is, but they also don't know any better at this point, and so it creates a really fun dynamic.
I would like a real-time update for the podcast from Spanish language correspondent, my friend Brianna, who possibly will be a future guest. I know we're still trying to iron out the details there, but you know, that would be fun. So Malvar, the root is the verb to do evil.
Oh, okay.
So
that makes sense.
Malvador would be a person who, in her words, a person who does bad stuff. So literally the bad guy. And she points out that it's the same root as malevolence or malintent.
Or like El Chico Malo is what I said. That was what Google Translate spit out.
Sure, if you're right. But I, for one, think it is way cooler that Odyssey didn't do
El Chico Malo.
Right, but like that this is and I'm curious to know like if Marshall Younger has a Spanish background, if there was someone else on staff, like how they pulled this off, but that it's not a word for word translation. It's what is like the spirit of this.
Yeah.
And like,
how would you say this in the other culture? How would you convey this idea?
Right. Someone who has a background in Spanish would hear that and know what you meant, even though it doesn't literally translate to the bad guy. You'd understand, that's a bad person.
And that's why my brain doesn't like languages. So Vince comes in to say hi to Nick, and like he's coming in with like a genuinely good attitude, which creates this really, again, funny dynamic where everybody's super on edge and trying not to upset this guy because Nick said so, and Vince is just like, hey, this place is really nice. Like, wow, I really like it here. The air's so nice. Everybody's great. Oh, did you check out this place and this place? He talks about the low crime rate and how like people are safe. Oh, when was your last mugging? That's what he says.
Yes. Oh, it's so funny where he comes.
He asks Whit when the last mugging was.
Yep. And Connie, Whit's like, I can't remember. He's like, see, imagine a place where you can't even remember the last mugging. And and during this, Connie just keeps saying, hey, with different tones.
Yeah.
Which Katie Lee must have had so much fun with that. It's real good. And I think it's interesting. And then they like excuse themselves to go make ice cream or something.
Yeah, yep.
And I think it's so funny that like Connie follows the letter of what Nick said of just saying, hey. Whit actually winds up following the gist of it, which is funny, where it feels like Whit should just kind of like turn and like attack this head on, but he plays by Nick's rules
in a very strange instance,
which like I'm here for, but doesn't strike me as particularly Whit-like.
Certainly not in this era, and like with him, with his relationship with Nick and everything. I don't know. I feel like him being in Whit's end, Nick should default to Whit rather than the other way around.
Sure. And then, as they see themselves out, Vince says, like, have a good one, folks.
Yeah.
And Nick's like, why are you saying folks? He's like, well, isn't that what they would say around here? And Nick's like, yeah, but it's not what you say. And he's like, well, look, I'm a Christian now, Nick.
Yeah, very important. And Vince became a Christian. And that's his big thing. That's his arc, and he's talking about just kind of like things aren't the same anymore is really what we get at this point in the episode. They'll explain more later, but
they
Nick's just freaking
same,
out.
But now they're not.
Yep, they used to be the same. Now no longer. Difference, change. Like the wind. Like a door.
Yeah, and so Nick's faced with, what if Vince is different? Mm-hmm. And the next time they meet up, Vince mentions that he's going, like, has made plans to go fishing with, like, Connie and some of the kids or something.
Yeah, it's like a church trip, essentially. Like, they're taking the Sunday school kids to go fishing.
Yep. And at this point, Nick's like, we used to make fun of people who fished. And I was like, is there like big fishing culture in New York City that you are making fun of fish people?
People cannot fish in like off the George Washington Bridge or the Brooklyn Bridge. Like those bodies of water are notoriously unsafe.
Yeah.
And uninhabitable.
Yeah. Oh, we could point out Vince is voiced by Chad Reiser, who we talk about a lot because he's the voice of Monty.
Okay.
Amongst like a billion other characters, but notably
Monty,
Whit's grandson, and secret agent.
Okay, this is my favorite Seinfeld episode. Is the one where Kramer is swimming across the river and he like gets like some sort of disease and then other people start joining him and it becomes like this cult of people making terrible decisions.
It's a good episode, but that's your favorite.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just the one I
Interesting.
remember
Okay.
the best, and I think it's really funny because I love
Fair
Kramer.
Yeah, Seinfeld is very funny. You heard it here first, folks.
First people to suggest it. Jerry Seinfeld, comedian on the rise.
Ugh.
Be on the lookout, folks.
Well, do be on the
Do
lookout.
be on the
If
lookout.
you're a high school girl, be on the lookout.
His time's coming.
As Vince is explaining about being a Christian and whatnot, he says, quote, that he went through the entire conversion experience.
Yeah.
When like Nick's relaying this to Cotty.
Well, you gotta convey that it's genuine, because otherwise, you can poke a lot of holes in it.
Yeah.
Were you baptized?
Nothing sounds less like, I don't know, appealing than went through the entire conversion experience. It's so clinical.
Yeah, it sounds like a car wash. It sounds like he got to the church, he put it in park, and they just rinse, washed, and dried him off on his way out.
Yeah. Yep. And so Nick's convinced that, Vince will still, succumb to his old ways. And so he puts cigarettes on the front seat of Vince's car.
Because Vince quit smoking.
Yeah, and they spy on him while he does it. And
Well,
then
so Nick drags Connie out to be like, see, he's still a bad person.
he's still El Malvador.
He's still, I'll bait him into going back to his old ways. It'll be just like before. If anybody does that for me, it will break me. Just know. When it comes to Andrew's relationship with nicotine and his ability to quit, if you make any attempt to sabotage me, I guarantee you it will work. Oh my goodness.
Joke's on you. I'm going to put cigarettes on them, and then they're going to not be tobacco. And
Like
you're
candy
gonna
cigarettes?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going with there.
Okay.
But
No, I mean, I'd be okay with it. I'm all for quitting smoking. That's the goal.
maybe some jazz cigarettes.
Sure. Never been one to turn that away. I'm just imagining it's a normal cigarette, but when you light it, it plays jazz out the filter. Do-do-do-do-do.
Oh, that's good. Nick, yeah. So Vince throws away the cigs.
Yeah, he pulls one out, and Nick's like, I got him, and then he crushes it up, which, that hurt me listening to it. I was like, oh. That hypothetical cigarette sounded really nice.
Yeah. I wonder when the last time Odyssey had a smoking thing in their show was, because I also wonder if, one, do you think there's a character in Odyssey who is vaped?
No, I don't think so.
Darn. But also, I wonder with the limit being raised to 21, if it's still something that they will that they're willing to touch, or if they're just kind of kids aren't dealing with this anymore.
I feel like it's perfectly on brand for them to do that, because there's you hear all those reports about underage drinking and smoking and addiction in youth, and it's totally unfounded, he says as he points at himself. I wouldn't be surprised that they would do something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder when the last time Odyssey mentioned smoking or drinking, because it just feels like such easy, obvious, and mainstream boogeymen
exactly
to talk about in the 90s and early 2000s, where I feel like that's not super dominant in current culture.
No, and I would say that a lot of Odyssey's newer stuff is way more heady, where it's dealing with deconstruction and doubting and stuff like that, where, that's important and valuable, and it's cool that they're telling stories that are kind of like that, but you would think that the other stuff from the older, years and eras of the show would translate a little bit more into what it is now.
I don't know. Yeah, it is just it's a moving target.
I'm surprised you don't hear a lot more about screen time and stuff like that.
Right. I'm I think about the stuff that gets mentioned,
media stuff.
Yeah, but right. I feel very much the boogeyman of today is sexuality and social media.
Yeah, kids on their phones.
And like alcohol and smoking is just kind of like we're just assuming this isn't an issue. I guess weed. Weed would maybe be the other boogeyman currently.
Well, and they're in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
80995.
They
or in Canada, right, too?
They're on the front lines against the devil's lettuce.
Truly.
This is what they asked for. You wanted to be in the Lord's army.
Would you share a blunt with Phil Lawler?
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. if he wanted one, I'd give it to him. I wouldn't even take any. I would just be... I'd accept the contact high of getting him stoned and seeing what that would do. I would love to see that man chill the frick out. Because I just can't imagine it.
Yeah, no, I don't. I somehow don't think that would be the effect on him.
No, it would probably be worse. It'd probably be like feral rat person pointing at like a conspiracy theory on a wall, being like, "See, this is how it all works out, Andrew. The chairman's still alive." That was a bad Phil Lawler impression. I can do that.
Just do your pirate voice. It's his favorite thing.
That's true. Arr, matey.
So yeah, there's. Yeah, then Nick's just going through doing all the temptations. So cigarettes come first. Then he's like, "Hey Vince, you want to start a big fire with all this trash I found? They're combustibles." And Vince is like, "No,
I don't remember that.
Not what?
They're combustibles?
Yeah, 100%. He's like Nick's like, "Hey, look at what I found." And he goes, "A big box, like a big bag of trash?" And Nick said, "No,
yeah,
combustibles."
He's talking about vandalism. Yeah, combustibles.
Yeah, he says combustibles. And Vince is like, "No, actually, I even that fire we started in New York, I turned myself in for that.
Yeah,
I didn't do anything because the statute of limitations was up, but the cop, was proud of me.
Yeah, respected my integrity,
which is really what we're all looking for.
The cop's approval, for sure.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
my ranking: pastor, cop, dad. That's the approval I see.
For sure. Definitely God. Pope Francis. Pastor. Dad.
Oh, man. And so... Yeah, then Nick's like,
Could you
hey...
imagine getting a letter from the Pope? Like...
Pope Francis, if you're listening.
Hey, Pope. I follow you on Twitter. He's a great follow. That would be my plug for the episode. Is Pope Francis on Twitter. He showed me that old people can use Twitter in a non-destructive way.
Do you think possible. He tweets it himself?
I don't need to think. I don't need to think about that. Yeah. I hope at the very least he dictates. And it's not just some person completely pulling it out their booty.
Shout out to The Two Popes on Netflix. A pretty decent movie that I watched with friend of the show and brother of Andrew Acebo, Brendan.
Great movie.
Only
if you're okay with subtitles, though.
Oh, yeah. Right. Forgot about that piece. Nah.
Main language comes back around full circle.
Full circle. And so, yeah, Nick then tries to get Vince to go to a party, and Vince is like, "Oh, that'd be fun, but I'm going to a Bible study." Then Nick's like, all right, none of this stuff's working. I'm going to introduce him to Muggsy. Which I think is my favorite Will Ryan character.
It's gotta be. It's so funny.
Muggsy is perfect.
Just small-brained big to come in.
I love that there's this guy in Odyssey who's Muggsy.
Like, where does he live?
Right? Like,
I feel like he has to take his...
under a bridge.
Yeah,
like
either that or he like lives in like Oswald Heights or something like that, and he goes to work in Odyssey, and like
Nick picked him up and drove him over.
He's the Odyssey thug.
Oh man, yeah, Muggsy, man, I feel for this dude.
He's just trying to get paid.
And so Nick's like brings him up and he's like, so I hear you're a tough guy, and you know, Vince is like, well, I used to be, not so much anymore. And then Muggsy's like, so you're saying you're a chicken?
Yeah.
What do you think about that? And he's like, yeah, I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm a Christian. And Muggsy's like, I don't like
Christians. That is the best. I don't like Christians.
It's maybe my favorite Will Ryan reading. It's so good. And then
R.I.P.
And then he leaves. Like, we leave that scene, and Nick's like, and Connie's like, so what happened? And Nick's like, oh, Vince ended up witnessing to Muggsy.
Yeah, Vince ended up telling Muggsy about Jesus and what he did, or sharing his testimony, I think is what he says. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no. Muggsy is hilarious. I love... It feels so Muppet-esque, like the big, scary-looking Muppet that's supposed to be like... Isn't it called like Sweetums or something?
Buddy, I know.
Not asking you about Muppets is a bad idea.
Yeah. I'll go reach out to my Muppet correspondent real quick.
Exactly.
I'll get you an answer on that.
That's the homework we should be doing for this podcast.
I'm just gonna tweet at Sam Schultz and just be like,
Muppets.
Look, man. Yeah. It also the fact that he's named Muggsy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Muggsy is a nickname or a real name, Andrew? And how would you translate Muggsy into Spanish? Would you find the word mug and then add an SY to the end? Or would you try and capture the spirit of what Muggsy embodies?
What word do you think describes the spirit of Muggsy?
I don't know Spanish well enough, but...
yeah, I just think big and dumb. That's where my brain goes. Yeah. So this is again, like you said, after the fact. Like Nick is hearing from, I think, Connie, or no, Nick's telling Connie about what happened with Muggsy, and then we realize that a camera has gone missing, and Nick immediately accuses his friend Vince.
Yeah, because Whit comes out and is like, you know, hey, the digital camera that I keep out under the counter is missing.
That's pretty sus.
That is
highly suspect.
That's gotta be one of like the most 2000s lines ever. This episode originally aired April 29th of 2000. A thing I didn't say earlier.
What is the word that he uses? Does he say digital camera?
He does say digital camera. Gosh. Yep. Yeah, because it's one of the good ones.
Amen. No, exactly. It was worth money.
Right.
That's why it was taken.
Yep.
And honestly, I didn't think that Vince actually took it when I was listening to this episode in prep.
Sure.
Spoiler alert, he did, and we hear about it later, but I genuinely thought that the whole point was that Nick was supposed to be entirely wrong this whole time, and
I think that is the obvious path.
Yeah.
And I think what makes me like this episode is the fact that they swerve on that.
Mm-hmm. For sure. No, I agree.
It is so, yeah, it's such a cool moment. So yeah, Connie explains that she was showing that camera to Vince, and Nick's like, "Well, of course, Vince did it. We used to do this sort of thing all the time. Nice. I know he didn't like fall for any of the other stuff I was doing, but you know he's gonna fall but then he did this on his own. Like I didn't even need to tempt him." And Whit's like, excuse me, what's this?
What about you tempting him to do wrong?"
Yeah, and he's like, "You know who else tempts people? Satan." Like,
excellent point.
I mean, correct on excellent point, but like It is not a, I don't know. Hey, Christian kid, or hey, non-Christian kid who works at my store, and I am trying to like set on the straight path.
I'm trying to minister.
Let me compare you to
the
Satan.
devil.
Like Lucifer.
Lucifer. Lucifer 3, Lucifer 2, Lucifer 1.
Like Lucifer, Lord of Darkness himself. That's who you are.
I am the devil from the Bible. So
Right. And it's, yeah. And then he goes on to say the Bible has some pretty harsh words for people who cause other people to sin.
Which, true. I mean, the most metal line in the Bible I can think of is when Jesus says, like, if you cause one of these children to stumble, you're better off with a giant rock tied around your neck and thrown to the bottom of the sea.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Like, yeah, he doesn't take too kindly to that. That's a pretty hard line for him.
Yeah. I saw someone joke that in the realm of trendy church names, Millstone Harbor would be an incredible name for a church.
Oh no! Oh no!
So, props to Matt Whitman of the 10-Minute Bible Hour for that incredible joke.
Amen. There's got to be some way to make money off of making that type of joke, right?
I mean, we could always print out Millstone Harbor Church of Christ shirts.
Michaela, do you want to make a fake church? We could legally file it and use it to get ourselves exempt from taxes.
Woohoo! The taxes that we totally pay on the profits made from the show and from those shirt sales. And also, it also, to be clear, is not my joke. And so I would feel weird selling merch.
True, of not your joke.
Of a joke that I'm quoting, not from the show, not really in any way related to the show.
No, I think Millstone Harbor is an excellent springboard for what will be the Wad Fam Chalk Pod Church of the Latter-day Saints.
Oh, wow. I feel like that's going to be more challenging than if we were just a regular church.
Definitely just a regular church, for sure. I meant to say Our Lady of Perpetual Wad Fam Chalk Pod.
Nice. Yeah, man.
Our Lady of Perpetual Wad.
So, yeah, I don't know. I wish Wit had... I understand what he's going for here. I wish he was a little bit more, like, tactful.
Yeah.
At the same time, like, Nick's actions are... Well, so here's the point I would make. Nick's actions are bad throughout this episode, regardless of whether or not you are a Christian.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of whether or not you're basing your life off Christian values, this is not a good way to go about things.
No, I mean,
so I think Wit had a better move to appeal to Nick on that basis than to go, like, you are, like, evil incarnate.
Yeah, you are evil incarnate. I'm going to compare you to, something that you don't even necessarily fully understand or believe in. You know, I couldn't just say that, like, hey, kind of a dick move to try to get an ex-smoker to start smoking again.
Right. Like, can you imagine, like
putting your energy into making somebody self-sabotage.
Right.
I know that there are people out there in this world that have mental diseases that make them do sorts of things like that. To me, blows my mind.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you could just do anything else.
Right. Yep.
Root beer floats exist, man, and unless you got diabetes, ain't no sabotage in there.
Yeah. Even if you got diabetes, there's sugar-free
exactly
ice cream and sugar-free root beer. So make yourself a sugar-free float.
That's what I'm plugging. Root beer floats, and what was the other thing?
Great question. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It'll be in the show notes because I put down what the plugs are as I go through the episode.
What a guy.
Because we mentioned so many things offhand that I then feel obligated to link to. If you're someone who utilizes the links in the description, tweet at me.
I'm not sure you exist.
I'm not, but I also know as a podcast listener
I love to have the links.
Yeah, that I am really bummed out when stuff isn't linked to, or I forget what that thing they recommended 20 minutes into the episode when I was in the car on my way to work and couldn't write it down. Like, I love when that stuff's in the notes.
I also love timestamps in podcast show notes.
Nope.
Well, okay, so it depends on the podcast. If it's like a comedy podcast where it's like people having a conversation, then you don't want to jump around like that. But
Bold of you to call us a comedy podcast.
I didn't say that about us.
But yeah, Vince arrives back at
Comedy
Wits
implies
End
an art.
to return his camera that he stole.
And he confesses. He says, "Hey, I admit it. I broke down. I did this thing.
Yep.
I started going back, but I felt super convicted, and I turned around, and I knew that I had to bring it back to you guys."
Yep.
And so he feels terrible.
Yeah, and he goes I guess I'm not as maybe I don't have all this stuff behind me after all, and kind of walks out head hung low.
Agreeing with Nick though,
Yes.
essentially at that point.
Yep. And then they're everyone kind of looks at each other as you gotta go after him.
Yeah.
And I like that Nick is the one to go out and bridge this gap.
Yeah. Well, it should be him.
Oh, for sure. But that they do let the non-Christian character be the one who affirms someone's faith journey.
Yeah, that is
a
cool.
nice moment.
Very rare. Very rare.
But you can see it from Nick's perspective of oh man, this is someone who has changed.
Well, and it has been established, he has this extensive personal connection to him.
Yeah.
And Nick, if he, reflected enough, would also know that he has not been committing acts of vandalism and such.
Right.
He has changed as well.
Yeah, true. Even Nick has given up smoking.
Has he at this point?
I think so.
Was that the whole?
Because I think
smoke?
Yeah, right? That episode ends
Yeah.
with him saying that he's not going to smoke anymore. I think. We covered that during split episode summer.
So the question, wow. So this really has been the Nick smoking saga.
I mean, look, there's
Guess
a
which
couple,
ones I'm going to rank
there's
the
a couple
highest.
key episodes that we swing back. Not this one. I like it more than you. And then, so they bond. He's sent on his way. And then Nick comes back in, and Connie's like, "So wait, they called you the cricket?"
Yeah,
and he's like, "Well, yeah, but in the macho sense."
Yeah. It was a very masculine and tough cricket, stealthy,
a tough
survivable, a cockroach.
Oh yes, a cockroach cricket, my favorite kind. Imagine a cockroach, but it jumps.
Ah! No, it makes noise aggressive bad noise.
Yeah, no, this is terrifying. Thanks for putting that into my head, Andrew. That's the end of the episode, folks. The thing I will note is, and we'll talk about this more next week, but this episode, when it first aired with Career Moves, the episode we covered last week, but then for the album release was released with Bethany's Flood and has aired with Bethany's Flood going forward.
Interesting.
And there's more on that next week. Look at that tease, guys.
Look at that.
You're going to get the whole backstory.
Are you
it's gonna
salivating?
Be so fun.
Are you so excited for Bethany's Flood? See y'all next week. Bye, guys.
Wait, no, no, we can't just end like that, Andrew.
No,
do you have any last thoughts?
No, I genuinely, my initial reaction to us talking about this episode was I remembered it a lot less fondly just because I felt frustrated for Nick being so belligerent. But upon re-examining it, I do think that it was actually a genuinely pretty good episode, and the way that they subverted at the end like that is just, it's it makes it stand out
Right.
Amongst the crowd.
Yeah, I think, one, it works well comedically. Nick's a fun character to play around with, and I like the final subversion, though some of the wit stuff is frustrating. But when isn't it?
Exactly. Well, and the wit stuff in the beginning is actually really funny, and I do think this is this pretty strong Connie episode, where Connie's been like willing to be up there, and she's calling both sides of the argument for what it is, but still holding to those Christian beliefs and trying to treat Vince with respect and love. And kindness. So
I like Connie as a character who has in other instances been very I feel like there's a version of this episode that probably already exists with Connie in the Nick role, and I like seeing her mature into a more proper, just having a good attitude about it and whatnot. And
who knows? I think they bring back some people from Connie's past and new stuff, so maybe they take her character backwards.
It wouldn't be the first time. And this episode does have an 80% on the wiki out of 34 votes.
I'd probably give it around a 75%, 80%, somewhere in there.
Sure.
I like it. I like it well enough for a split episode. It's pretty good and funny, and Nick's great. Yeah. I wonder what kind of cigarettes he gave him. That's my question.
Yeah. Well, when we get Marshall Younger on the show, we'll have to ask him what he envisioned.
I need canonical information regarding tobacco in Odyssey.
Yep. Oh man. All right. With all that being said, we're gonna be back next week for episode 444C, Bethany's Flood.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Wadfam Chalk Pod is a presentation of the Lidditz Podcast Co-op. This show is a fan podcast and has no official affiliation with Adventures in Odyssey or Focus on the Family. As such, the copyright is ours under Creative Commons. Follow the podcast at wadfamchalkpod on Twitter and Instagram, or email us at wadfamchalkpod@gmail.com. The Bad Guy was hosted by Dylan Weaver and Andrew Asamo, and edited by Dylan Weaver. And I'm Nathan Haverstick, hoping you'll join us again next time for more of the Wadfam Chalk Pod.